Can I jump in with something that I found on Hip Hop DX Instagram the other day? In our was that our first or our second episode? So we were talking about being guests in hip hop. Was that last episode?
Last episode, correct. Episode 2.
So basically, I just took a screenshot of the post that they put up. So Hip Hop DX, the caption for the article is Benny the Butcher says he's a guest in hip hop like Eminem. The Griselda Records rapper recently sat down with DJ Vlad to discuss a variety of topics.
I watched this.
Lord Jamar's comments. You did?
Yep. So I can. Okay, yeah. You didn't see the video?
Expand, yeah. Cause I just read that. No, I just thought of the caption and read the thing. There's like a brief little blurb. I was like, "Fuck, all right, cool."
Finish reading it then. Finish reading the caption. Sorry to cut you off. And I'll explain.
No,
what happened.
It's very brief. No worries. It's a brief quote. It's just I don't feel that hip hop is mine. I feel like I have a pass in this thing of ours that we call hip hop. It's like a fraternity. I feel like a guest too because everybody's not allowed in. Even if you're in it, doesn't mean you're allowed in. So anyway, I thought that was solid to bring that up because he's fucking.
That's a really good topic, and we probably should have even touched on this the last episode. So basically, I
didn't even know that was around. I saw that yesterday.
Okay, are you familiar with Vlad TV?
So I haven't seen it, but I know what it is.
Okay. So DJ Vlad was a DJ. He did a series of mixtapes in the 90s and stuff. I was familiar with him. I think I'd heard a couple of them. I wasn't really heavy on it. So he started a platform called Vlad TV where basically he sits down with artists, with literal drug dealer, criminals, from Escobar's dude, lawyers, business people,
Underworld
people, exactly, reality TV. Literally anybody who has an interesting story. He's interviewed John Witherspoon a bunch and, RIP, but just everyone who is an interesting platform. So he's a Russian dude from Russia, moved out to the States. He is the king of clips. So I think even before Joe Rogan was doing it, he cuts his interviews up into clips and basically
that's
what you're talking about.
That's where I know it from.
Yep.
Okay.
So for some reason, I'm on his email list. So about twice a day, I get emails from Vlad TV, and I'm never mad about it because it keeps me up in the culture because I see what people are talking about and there's interesting shit. Right. So he sits down with Benny, and I watch all the Benny clips that he put out so far because I'm a big fan. And basically, the TLDR is that Vlad has Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian on a lot. Lord Jamar is essentially, I guess I got to be somewhat shady to say, he's like an angry old hip hop purist. He's always angry at everybody and everything. He doesn't like the gays. He doesn't like whites. He just doesn't like anybody. It's actually kind of funny to hear him talk because he's just so you can just tell. You look at him, you can just tell he's angry the way he talks. So you have to look at it, whatever he's saying, with that lens. So he said Eminem is a guest in the culture of hip hop because he's arguably the great. He sold the most records of all time. But he's still a guest. Now, that is a race-based comment. He's saying because he is not an African-American, and African-Americans, essentially Jamaicans, really, but created the culture. Someone who isn't of that descent is a guest, which is why I said that, because I actually kind of align with that, right? I think it's fair to say that. Not kind of align, I do. That's why we said it. Eminem came back at him on his last album. What was the last one called? I always forget the names.
Oh, mate, no idea.
Whatever the fuck that was called. He took some jabs at Lord Jamar or whatever. Not a big deal. And then he sat down with Crooked I for Crooked I's new series. I forgot what it's called as well. Crooked's Corner, I think. Crooked's a legend. We talked about him, I think, in the first episode. Yep. He interviewed Eminem, and Eminem said, yes, I actually agree with Lord Jamar. I am a guest in the culture. So Vlad brought that up to Benny, which is a weird interview because this whole interview, almost every single clip I saw, Vlad was bringing up other interviews he did to Benny when he should be probably asking Benny more questions.
Yeah,
but anyway,
because he's right in front of his face. Yeah,
it was a little because it was so consistent. I watched probably 7 clips from it so far, and they've all been the same. So Benny said he feels that he is like a guest in the culture because he goes, it's not mine. Just because he's of African American descent doesn't mean that the culture belongs to him. For the quote that you just read out before. I think everyone can have their own thoughts on it. I guess it's. You could argue that the culture belongs to everybody. It's not one group anymore. It's kind of grown beyond that. But I think that, at the same token, you got to understand it was a way for an oppressed group of individuals to express themselves because everything else in their life was oppressed. So whilst that culture has grown beyond them, and that's what happens sometimes. Some people create some shit, and then it gets bigger than they ever intended. That's a beautiful thing. It's also been bastardized. It's also been sold out. It's also been bought out by the labels who obviously aren't African American owned, and manipulated. And now, before it was a voice of the people, and in the 90s it was showing that real street life. It was a window into and I think that's why you and I fell in love with it, and a lot of people like us. When I say like us, I mean of our age group who are listening to it. Doesn't matter what color you are, what background, or where you grew up. You hear these street stories, and you're like, yo, you can relate because it's like a movie in audio form. And over the time, it's become now all about this, money and clubs and cars and strippers and fucking whatever and chains and shit. It's very, like, it always had a little bit of that because that was a symbol of success, because these people who started the culture came from poverty. They were oppressed. They were fucking shot at all the time by the police. They were, like, it was, that was their way of saying, hey, look, man, we made it. We're on par with everybody else. Y'all trying to make us feel like trash, and here we are. So I guess now it came past that, even though Benny is just saying that he didn't create it. He's just a dude from Buffalo. He's in his 30s too, which is going to be in our next major topic. And I know you alluded to it before. So it was like, yeah, it was an interesting perspective because I've never heard anybody say that there was African American. So that's really what it was.